one way that you can know whether you're identifying with your emotions and with your thoughts is you'll get upset. It'll bother you. It'll be a problem. It'll become a problem. Instead of just being with life as life is, once we engage with life with thinking, the thinking process takes life and compares it to your conditioning. It takes life and compares it to what you think it should be. I mean, one of the ways this shows up is if something happens and it's wrong. Somebody says the wrong thing. Something happens and it's disturbing because it doesn't meet your expectations. Something happens and it's disturbing because it thwarts your intention. You were trying to do something and it blocked you, and then you get upset, you know. I think we all have days where, in the morning you go to do something and it doesn't work and you feel a little bit of annoyance, but all right, and then you go on to the next thing and then something else doesn't work and you feel a little more annoyance, but you're still not really crazy yet, right? And then another thing happens that doesn't work, and at that point it's like, God damn it, right? That's when you've identified with the thought process. Yeah? And so it's important, don't become naive, don't become stupid about this and begin to think, well, the kind of thing this is that when I cross the line, when I wake up, when I become enlightened, when I cross the line, nothing will ever bother me again. That's what I'm shooting for here. I want to make the picture I have about this become real. I want to have the beliefs I have about what it means to be enlightened become real. I want to be blissful. I want to be peaceful. I want to always be smiling and be happy all the time. That's what I want. If that's what you want, that's going to perpetuate more unhappiness. So you have to come back and realize that the truth of the matter is that rather than having what you want be a function of what's happening, I want to be peaceful no matter what happens, right? No matter what happens. I want to be happy no matter what happens. I want to feel unconditional love no matter what happens. I want to be satisfied no matter what happens. Now, what the teachings tell us and what the practice is all about is the understanding that all of what I just said that I want is always immediately available. It's always immediately available, right? So if your wanting it has you seek it in circumstances, you're going to be having a lot of difficulties because it's not available in circumstances. However, your life is a circumstance, is it not? Yeah, so even though it's not available in circumstances, and even though the teachings and practices tell us it's always immediately available, all we have to do is quiet and calm down and be able to be present and be able to experience our true nature, the natural state, and there it is. Regardless of the circumstances, there it is. So, how does that play out as you encounter life? Right? Because in order to encounter life, you have to get involved with the illusion. You have to get involved with the idea that people are separate from me. That's the game we're playing here. You have to get involved with the idea that people will behave in dysfunctional and unworkable ways, and that will create conflict and suffering. That's what's coming at you. That's what's coming at you, right? So how do you practice this? See, this is where the rubber meets the road. It's all well and good to sit here and talk about these highfalutin ideas about spirituality and about bliss and about the possibility of being free and the possibility of happiness and all the rest of it. How could you not want that, right? How could you not want that? But the reality of it is, even if you understand all that, and even if you have flashes of that from time to time when you're in meditation, You know, if you're sitting in meditation, you happen to have a very pleasurable experience, right? And then you say to yourself, yeah, that's it. That's it. That's what this is about. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want to happen. Okay? And then you get up off the cushion or you get up off the chair and, you know, you go over to your computer and you try and access your bank account to pay a bill, and you get the message, you know, not workable. Try again later. And then you turn from there and you go to go and put the garbage out, and you hear a noise and you look out the window and it's the garbage truck going by. You know, so these things start to add up, right? Because you have these preconceived ideas about everything, about the way it should go, right? The garbage truck shouldn't come until my garbage is out. If I go on the computer to pay a bill on my bank account, it should work. And if it doesn't work, that's not okay, okay? So when these things happen, what happens when these things happen? When these things happen, it triggers you. What's that mean? It gets a rise out of you. What's that mean? It means you have these emotions that are in your belly start to rise up. You know, it starts out with just annoyance or a little frustration, right? And then you go to the next thing that doesn't work during the day, and that rises up a little higher, right? And it can get to the point, it can rise up to the point where now you are an attitude. You become an attitude. And your attitude is, life sucks. Life isn't working. I don't like it. I don't want it, you know. And if anybody gets involved with me that's not being the way they're supposed to be, God help them now. Right? So what the application of these practices is that's the mind. That's the mind. It's like one of the teachers that I've been talking about recently said, meditation is disengaging from the mind. That's the mind. Right? So you have to practice noticing when the mind gets activated. Well, you have to practice noticing when something happens and you feel this knee-jerk reaction. You know, the mind gets activated. And usually when that happens, if you don't know anything about the truth or you haven't practiced these practices, when that happens, right, you become the upset. You are upset. It's not you're aware of being upset. No, you are upset. What comes out of your mouth is the upset talking. You know, your behavior is the upset expressing itself in behavior, you know, in terms of what you break when you're angry, or what you smash when you're angry, right? So you've got to practice, you have to practice being aware when you get triggered. You have to practice when you have to be aware when you start to go off the path. You know, when you start to get crazy, when you start to get weird. You have to be aware of that. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to control it, right? So depending on where you are in these practices, the way it starts out is that, you know, an upset occurs, you're being the upset, you're acting out the upset, and the being the upset and acting out the upset just creates negative consequences. You know, and then people are mad at you, you're mad at people, you break something, you get frustrated, you know, you scream, you call online support and holler at people, or, you know, whatever it is, you know. And you're totally out to lunch about it, right? And then later, as you calm down a little bit, you know, I mean, if you haven't studied these teachings or practiced these practices, you may never calm down. You know, it may wear out a little bit, right, until the next thing spikes it, right? And it can get to the point where you're just crazy. You're crazy. You're uptight. You're crazy. You know, and all you want to do is get away from what? From you. All you want to do is get away from you because you're miserable, because you're upset, because you're uncomfortable, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're depressed, you're anxious, right? All you want to do is get away from you, but you can't get away from you. Right? So with these teachings and practices, you begin to have an understanding that there's a possibility. There's a possibility if you practice. There's a possibility if you understand it. And the possibility is that you can train yourself to start to notice when you start to go south. You can train yourself when that happens. And as you're training yourself about that, right? You'll get to a point where you can watch it instead of be it. You'll get to a point where you get triggered, and this is the tricky part, because when you get triggered and the emotions get triggered, right? If you suppress the emotions, right, you're creating a bomb that's going to go off in the future. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to suppress the emotion. You want to allow yourself to feel whatever's there, but not identify with it, but not be mad. Be aware of anger, but not be mad. Once you're being mad, there's nowhere to go. You are the anger. There's the anger. You're not separate from it, right? So you're being the anger, right? So if you start to practice recognizing it and catching it, right, then you'll start to notice the activity that goes on in your mind, right? And you'll hear the voice. You'll hear the voice talking. The voice is telling you what's wrong and why it's wrong and how wrong it is and how wrong they are and how I'm not going to put up with this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. You can watch it. You can watch it, right? And if you're watching it and you see that this is also associated, it's a mind-body operation, so this is also associated with emotions like frustration, annoyance, anger, anxiety. The trick is you want to be able to allow the emotional experience to happen, because emotions is energy. It's just energy in the body arising, right? So you don't want to resist or reject what's happening as far as the emotions are concerned. So you let yourself be aware of feeling the feelings without identifying with them, right? Anger is here. Thinking is occurring. The thinking is angry thoughts, and the angry thoughts are perpetuating more anger. So if I'm aware of the angry thoughts, right, and because I'm aware of the angry thoughts and I realize this is taking me out of the possibility, you see, because the possibility is always available to experience peace and well-being. But now I'm involved with something that's taking me out of the possibility, right? So I see it's taking me out of the possibility, and I'm watching it run. The thing now is I'm not resisting the emotions. I'm not even resisting the thinking or trying to change the thinking, right? But I'm not identified with either one of those things. I'm watching. This is the witnessing. I'm watching it now, right? And because I'm watching it, it will run its course, right? The feelings will come up to be felt. They'll occur as sensations in the body. The thoughts will come up from your past experiences. They'll play out, right? And you'll watch all that, right? Now, the key is not to identify with either one of those things, and also not to act them out. That's where we really get screwed up. If my wife says something to me and I have a reaction to what she's saying, and then the voice in my head starts talking and saying, she's really not too smart. And, you probably should not say too much to her because she's not too smart and she'll probably get angry and get upset, and then you'll have to fight with her and that won't work. So just ignore her. Right? Now, for most people, they're not just listening to that. They consider that to be them. I am thinking, right? And I don't question my own thoughts. People don't do that. You don't question your own thoughts, right? So if I'm identified with that, right, now it's determining me. So I start to ignore her, right? And she notices that I'm ignoring her. So she comes to me and she says, is something wrong? Something bothering you, right? And then the voice in my head says, should you tell her? Should you tell her? If you don't tell her and you lie about it, she'll know you're lying, right? And then she'll provoke you, and then you're really going to have to fight, right? So try and still be nice, but tell her, right? And so you try and tell her, well, when you said that, I really think that's not a good idea. Maybe you should learn more about what you're talking about and everything, and there's no way she's going to accept that. Because no matter how pretty you try and make it, no matter how nice you try and make it, it's still insulting because it's self-righteous. It's saying, I'm right and you're wrong, I'm good and you're bad, right? And you can't help it because that's how you really feel about it, right? And once that's out there, right, and then she's going to come back, and what do you think she's going to do? What do you do when somebody approaches you and starts telling you about yourself? Your wife was talking about this one night when you weren't here. So you're saying, that's what I do to him. That's what we all do to one another. You don't even have to, it doesn't have to be your wife or your family. You know, it could be the people that you bump into in the store. It could be the people on the highway, right? This voice is ready and willing to make everybody wrong, to make everything wrong. And the proof that it is programmed to do that is it won't spare you either. It'll make you wrong too. You'll do something and the voice will say, boy, you're an asshole. What an asshole you are. How ignorant you are, right? And then it'll make you afraid because you feel inadequate and unstable, right? And then it's, oh shit, you know, how do I live my life this way? You know, now I have to hide. Now I have to protect myself from anybody finding out about me, right? You see how this turns into a psychological nightmare? Yeah, turns into a psychological, and because you don't know any alternatives, because you haven't learned about the truth, you haven't learned about the teachings or the practices, right? You're stuck there. You're stuck there. So then what are you going to do? The only thing you can do is seek relief. So all you can do is seek relief from what? From yourself, from your own mind, from the world, right? Now you become a consumer. Once that's the case, right, then there are people out there that know about this, know about the condition you're in, and they'll say, hey, just take this. Just take this. Have a Bud Light, you know? Smoke a joint, you know? Or better yet, talk to your doctor. Your doctor will write a little piece of paper and give it to you. You take it to your pharmacy, and you can take those pills, and all that upset will calm down. You'll be superficially tranquilized. Superficially tranquilized. So one of the things that we're practicing in these teachings and practices is to cultivate tranquility. You know, in the state that you're in as a personality identified with your physical body, right? You're prone to craziness. You're prone to be crazy. All you have to do is get up in the morning and walk around and you'll end up crazy in about an hour, right? You're prone to be crazy, right? So if you know you're prone to be crazy, right? Until you're sufficiently released from the captivity of identifying yourself as your personality, until you're sufficiently released from that, which you can be and you will be if you stay with these practices and teachings. But until that, you can support the process as a person by practicing being tranquil, by practicing being quiet, by practicing being still, by practicing being relaxed and calm. Like a practice. How do you do that? You do it the same way you do in formal meditation, right? If you're not yet able to be consistently awake in your life, then practice tranquility. Practice being tranquil. Practice applying the wisdom that you're learning about in every day. Practice it as you're living your life, right? Pay attention in such a way where you're watching when you go crazy, right? And then see if you can start to practice at least not expressing it, at least not shitting on other people with it, right? At least keeping your insanity to yourself, right? And then start practicing allowing yourself to calm and relax and be tranquil and experience the tranquilized wisdom, to experience the possibility. You can do that because, as we said in the very beginning, it's always available, right? All you have to do is when you go out of your mind, when you go crazy, right? Just adjust yourself back to the path. Just adjust yourself back to the path. How do you do that? You realize you're off the path, right? And then you understand the path is always with you. The path is always in the moment, right? So all you have to do is, one of the ways you could do this is you could use the breath. You could practice, whenever I realize that I'm crazy, start paying attention to my breath. And if I start paying attention to my breath, I'm moving my attention out of the mental state. And it's like my Zen teacher said the other night when he was talking about this. He says, don't think the breath is special. It's just convenient because it's always available, right? But when you're crazy, you can really move your attention to any neutral thing. You could pay attention to any neutral thing, The world out there as it really is neutral. It's not right, wrong, bad, or good. It's neutral, right? Your mental state isn't neutral, it's crazy. Right? So when you recognize you're in crazy town, right, you bring your attention out of that to the breath or to anything in the environment and start to give your attention to that. And when you do that, you're not thinking. This is why I keep saying thinking is the place that the suffering occurs. It's not what's happening, it's the thought process about it, and it's the emotional reaction to it that's causing you to suffer. That's the hell realm that keeps being put in front of you, right? So you can't see the neutral life, you can't see life as it is, you see life through the lens of it being hell. Because you're thinking about it and because you're relating to it with your emotions. Now, the secret to a panic attack, and I treat people with panic attacks, when they first hear my treatment for the panic attack, they're confused. Because my treatment is, when you're having a panic attack, the secret to success in dealing with a panic attack is to have it. The reason the panic attack turns into suffering is because the first thing the person does is say, no, this is wrong. I'm going to resist this. This is scaring me. It's scaring me. It's making me think I'm going to die because my heart's palpitating, right? Yeah. Well, if you are going to die, the best thing to do is just let go because you can't do anything about it. And if you're not going to die, the best thing to do is just be present to what's happening. Yeah? Just allow yourself to experience what's happening. Don't freak out about it. If you're having a panic attack and you can recognize, oh, I'm having a panic attack, the next thing to do is have it. Let your heart palpitate. Let what's happening happen. Don't resist it. And when that's the case, what will happen is the panic attack will die it'll die a natural death. Why? Because you're not engaged. You're not interacting with it. You recognized it, saw it for what it is, and let it be just exactly the way it is without doing anything about it. And it passed just like everything passes. Everything comes and goes. It's only when you get involved and you try and resist it and control it and stop it, now you're in suffering. Now you're in suffering. I have a client that, well, I've had a lot of clients that have panic attacks because that's a common thing these days, right? And, once I start working with somebody that has panic attacks and I start getting them to relax and start getting them to let it happen and stop fighting with it, stop resisting it, they start practicing that and they realize, oh, it's working. It's working. I haven't had a panic attack in a while now. I haven't had anything that looks like a panic attack. And then I have to say to them, but you will. See, the first thing the mind does is say, oh, I've got an answer to this. Now I'm going to keep it from ever happening again. That guarantees that it's going to happen. Why? Because that's resistance. That's resistance, right? And so when that happens, I say to the client, the treatment that I'm giving you is not to stop and control panic attacks. The treatment that I'm giving you is when they happen, you can allow them to happen so that they come and they go. And if you apply that to the rest of your life, your suffering will end because you will allow everything to happen. And if you allow everything to happen the way it's happening, it'll come and it'll go. It'll stop bothering you. It's only bothering you because you don't like it and you don't want it and you're trying to stop it and you're trying to control it and you're resisting it. And that's causing a lot of suffering. So no matter what it is, when you get up during the day, one of the ways that you can see what I'm talking about is you get up during the day, pay specific attention to when you reject or resist what's occurring. Because as soon as you reject or resist what's occurring, you'll start to suffer. That is the source of suffering, is not allowing things to be the way they are. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Source of suffering is now not allowing things to be the way they are. But the problem is that when people resist and reject reality, it's a knee-jerk reaction. In other words, I don't feel like I have a choice about whether I allow it or I reject it. That's just what happens. That's what my mind does. That's what my thoughts do. That's what my feelings do, right? Yeah, and the reason that that's the case is because your mind and your thoughts and your feelings and you are the same thing. You are totally identified with your mind, your thoughts, and your feelings, so you have no place away from them to deal with them. Yeah, so what we're talking about here is to start to get quiet and calm, cultivate tranquility, cultivate stillness, cultivate the ability to be quiet enough that you can go to that. You can go to that. It's always available. It's available right now. It's always available. Let yourself right now be aware of being aware. Let yourself right now not think about what I'm saying, but simply be aware of it. Not see how you feel about what I'm saying, but simply be aware of it. And if there are feelings there and thoughts there, let them be there as well. I've often suggested to people to listen to a certain teacher, right, or listen to a certain talk, right? And a lot of times they come back and say, I couldn't do that because the person, they talked too loud, or they were Indian and they spoke with an accent. I couldn't listen to that. You see how their mind jumped right in and stopped it? That's how easy it is for your mind to lead you around by the nose so that you don't have access to wisdom. So practice being calm and tranquil and quiet, and you'll see that you have the ability to be with what's happening instead of having it torture you.